Let me just add a couple things here. One is I think we're all sort of in agreement that the city needs to feel safer, that a surge in resources obviously would help. Would help in any city, really. I mean, you have a surge in resources, you clamp down on crime, that's a good thing. But in defense of D.C., to Eugene's point, this is a dramatically different city than even when I moved in 2004. Back then, U Street was nothing. H Street was nothing. They've become vibrant. Great places to live, great places to eat. The city is fantastic in that respect. There are parts that are problematic, of course. Trump compared it unfavorably to Baghdad yesterday. That's ridiculous. I mean, just ridiculous. Yeah. And I think we need to just sort of level set a little bit here. This is not a hellhole. It's a great place. Crime is trending down. It could get better. One thing that could help with what Trump is complaining about, such as truancy, homelessness, street repair, guardrails. He had a fixation on guardrails, for instance, yesterday. One thing that might help is the fact that the Republicans in Congress, with Trump's signature, took $1 billion out of the D.C. budget in one of the government funding bills. There was an agreement to restore that $1 billion to D.C. That money is not returned. Yep. $1 billion would go a fair way to making this city the beautiful, shining capital that Donald Trump wants. I would love to see him put his shoulders into that one. That might actually help a little bit. But I think, and Willie, maybe this is going to fear Joe for you. I thought the most revealing comment from yesterday had nothing to do with necessarily crime in D.C. It was when Trump said something very specific. He said, people in Iowa want to come to D.C. for tourism, and they don't feel safe about it. He was not playing necessarily to the D.C. audience when he made that when he did that press conference. He was playing to people who have a perception of what D.C. is like, and who believe that the capital city is overrun by, youth crime, which is problematic in certain parts, but it's not the case. And I think, look, this guy, Donald Trump, is shaped by his experiences in New York City in the 70s and in the late 80s and in the early 90s. I think he understands that being tough on crime really did work for people like Rudy Giuliani. He believes that this is good politics, and maybe he believes it in his bones, too, that this is smart. But I think that's what's happening here, is that he looks at this, he thinks that we're a good cudgel that he can use, and that he can appeal to people in the middle of the country who have a warped perception of what D.C. actually is like.
Well, I mean, I've lived in D.C. On and off for over 30 years. And it's kind of like when I first started flying into JFK. And JFK was just trashed back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I looked at the airport, I go, what? This is the gateway to America for the rest of the world? It's a garbage dump. And they started to fix it. I will tell you, watching all of my friends being held up, not all of my friends, but a lot of my neighbors being held up on Capitol Hill back in the 1990s at gunpoint, and watching a lot of the chaos. And I will just say, bringing it up recently, watching what happened after COVID and then watching how unserious the city council was, passing one law after another law after another law that made Washington, D.C. less safe. Just looked at it and said, these people aren't serious people. And by the way, I'm not dealing with ambiguities or whatever. I'm hearing from a lot of friends, a lot of other people that, and it's not just over the past 3 days. I've been hearing it over the past 5 years, including this year. People living in supposedly a nice part of town, downtown, where there's shootings, where there's still carjackings, where there's still muggings, where people are still getting the hell beaten out of them walking to a restaurant. Now, I understand Donald Trump, again, will play to middle America, but this is what separates Washington from Philadelphia, from many of the other cities that we're naming. It is the nation's capital.
Yeah.
And I do want people from Iowa, people from Nebraska, people from New York City, people from all over America to be able to come to the nation's capital, to be able to walk at night to dinner, and not be afraid that they're going to get mugged or beaten up, Sam. So, I get your point, and I do understand that it's kind of like David said. Is Donald Trump going to be able to take something that's going to be an 80-20 issue and turn it into a 20-80 issue because he overreaches or because he vilifies the wrong people, well, I think Vegas probably would put that at 50-50 odds right now.
Sure.
But I do think there is a feel for people who live in D.C.,
yeah.
people who visit D.C., that I would love this place. I hate to keep bringing up New York City, but I would love this place to be like New York City. New York City transformed. If we had a great, by the way, that author yesterday that was on about New York from 86 to 90. I mean, I was in New York in 86 to 90 several times. That was a scary place. That was Fort Apache, the Bronx, baby. And the 70s was even worse. They turned it around. And I saw how they turned it around. And yes, and I will say his name, Giuliani. I saw how, and Bratton. I saw how they turned it around. And I've always asked, why can't we have that for Washington, D.C.? Why can't we turn Washington around the way New York City was turned around? So I don't know, Sam. I don't know. I do think we're talking the same language to a large degree. I think it's just context, right? Like D.C. has made real progress for 2 decades straight. And yeah, there was a huge setback in the pandemic era. And trust me, I had friends who witnessed some pretty heinous stuff on the Hill and had to move from the Hill because of the rampant crime there. And over the past 2 years, more progress has been made. So I do think I don't think we're speaking different language. I think, of course, any surge in federal resources to help combat a crime problem will help with the crime problem. And of course, everyone wants the capital city to be a place where everyone can visit and feel comfortable. No one is arguing that. My point is simply that it's not Baghdad. It's really not Baghdad.
Right.
And I just want to make clear.
It's not Baghdad,
Right.
and there's not people running in the streets with. I mean, I think that's the issue here, is that we're not just dealing with a crime problem where people are breaking in and robbing. We're dealing with, and I know because I was visiting D.C. a lot in recent years. I had a daughter living there, and it was, what you could see, anecdotal evidence, and that would be every time I went to get coffee, I would see 1, 2, or 3 drug-addicted people milling around screaming in the street. I then thought, well, where do homeless people go, and looked at a homeless shelter that looked too unsafe to enter. This is in Washington, D.C. And this is on the city government. This is years and years of streets that don't feel safe, but also have very disturbing situations playing out on them. And so, Willie, the question that I have is, what is the National Guard going to do about that? Because it's not just crime. If you focus on crime, which the numbers are going down, of course, that makes sense to ramp up and have a presence, I guess. But that's not exactly what's plaguing Washington, D.C. It's from rats to homelessness to people who need help to mental health care. I mean, this is a multifaceted problem.